Hello, Danielle.
Wait, let me see. Hold on.
Hi there. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you very much for accommodating me. I apologize.
No problem. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us
Of
because
course.
it's important to know who you are.
Oh,
So,
I just got back from vacation. Now's the best time to know me.
oh, no. Where'd you go?
I actually went to Roatan, Honduras.
Oh, cool. Greetings, folks. This is Brian Harris, the creator of the Independent Black Voters on Facebook. As we do our sit downs and our conversations with the candidates that made it through the primaries that are now in the general election. I'd like to introduce you, Danielle Pieper. Is that correct?
Yeah, Piper, and then Chio is my legal
Yeah,
last name.
yes.
I can do the
Okay.
whole explanation if you want later.
We'll talk about that afterwards. But we thank you for coming on and tell them who you're running for, what department you're running for, and what you're running for.
I am running for Las Vegas Justice Court Department number 9.
Okay, great. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start off to let you tell us a little bit about who you are. Okay. And tell us why you are running for judge. The Independent Black Voters, we do endorse. We try to talk to as many candidates that will allow us to talk to them. We want to know your beliefs as it becomes being a judge. But more importantly, we want to know your value and belief system. So we'll start off and say, introduce yourself, tell us about you, and tell us why you decided to run for judge.
So my name is Danielle Pieper Chio, and I actually practice under Danielle Pieper. The district attorney's office allows me to do that. So basically, we'll go back 19 years ago. I started my career, born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii, went to college in Whittier, California, and then I took some time off, was a nanny, which that was an interesting career. And then I went to law school in Sacramento. My mom and I actually went to law school at the same time. She went to Boyd School of Law. I went to McGeorge School of Law. And I think the year I graduated, Gray Davis was getting recalled in California. And so my mom said, good luck on finding a job. Why don't you move to Vegas? And so I made the decision to move to Las Vegas. I made the decision to become a prosecutor, and that was mostly, so when I was growing up, my father was an alcoholic. He was extremely abusive. He's a drug addict. And so my family went through a lot of domestic violence issues. And so we turned to the church at that time, and the church just kept telling my mom, and when I mean the church, like a Christian church, just kept saying, well, you got to pray, you got to pray. And I kept thinking, she's getting beaten. So I think the got to pray, we have to do that, but you also have to do something more. And after college, I volunteered with sexually abused children. And so when I was kind of going through law school, I thought, look, I'm not a very good student. I mean, I was actually a C student. Law school was really hard for me because I'm much more of a practical learner than this whole theory thing. And so when I graduated from law school, I realized I wanted my voice to be used for what I felt was good. And I felt that there were a lot of victims in the system that had a hard time speaking up, especially sexually abused victims. And so that's why I made the decision to become a prosecutor. I moved here because the economy was terrible when I graduated in 2003. I got a job at the city attorney's office. I worked for the city of Las Vegas. And then I actually met Steve Wolfson there, and he said, hey, why don't you go to the DA's office? I think you'll like it. And I was like, I don't know. And then, 6 months after he did that, we recommended that, I actually went to the Clark County District Attorney's Office. I started on general litigation here. And then I was moved to the sexual assault unit. So I actually realized that dream of mine, worked there for 2 years. And then in 2010, I was moved to the gang unit. In 2012, when Steve Wolfson became the DA, he made me the team chief. And so ever since then, I've been working on the gang unit. Because I've always practiced under Danielle Pieper, because that was my name. 5 years ago, I got married. And thought, I built a reputation on my name. And so I took my husband's name thinking I would never run for office because quite frankly, I never thought I would run for office. And then I realized when I ran for office that I had to use my legal last name, which was Chio. I didn't have enough time to change it back to Piper. So that's why I'm Danielle Pieper Chio on the ballot. I made the decision to run because I felt a call to action. So one of the things that I realized is that everybody in this community wanted to be safe or wants to be safe, right? Part of that can be helped by the criminal justice system and the things that we do, but it also can be helped by the judges. And so I had a case where it started on the Strip. There was a shooting on the Strip. There were some gang members that came from out of the state into the state, and they shot 3 people on the Strip, 2 of which were tourists. One was a veteran of the military who was just kind of gambling, and he ended up kind of just getting shot because the bullets were flying. And the judge set a bail that I thought was relatively low for people that came to this town who essentially had a criminal record and really didn't add value. And so he made the decision. He kind of was, and it's the judge that I'm running against. He was like, look, what do you want me to do? And I said, $10,000 isn't much for people that have committed violent acts before. And they've come into this community now and want to commit violent acts in this community. And I think that, you know, we deserve justice here as well. So he made a smart remark. He said, well, what do you want me to do about it? I told him I wanted to raise the bill. He raised the bill by $500 and he laughed. And I thought, okay, you know, look, not going to take it personal. We move on. And then as I started to do more research, I realized that there were people that had committed crimes against children, had been accused of sexually molesting children. He let out of custody, and then they had come back and, you know, recommitted crimes. And I thought, look, I have 6 years left in my career, and I feel like I have more to give to this community. If the voters make the decision that I don't, then they make the decision that I don't. But at the end of the day, I want to be able to look at myself in the mirror and look at my stepdaughters and say, look, I took a chance on a new venture because I feel like I have something to add. Look, at the end of the day, I'm not going to say because I'm a prosecutor, everybody's going to stay in custody, because I actually believe that there's more that the judicial system and the criminal justice system need to do for people. Releasing somebody without any pretrial help, whether it's, you know, drug counseling, any kind of structure, isn't fair to a person, because you put them right back on the street with no resources. And we continue to do that. We never do anything about it. We always talk about it. I have 19 years of working in the system. I feel that I have that to offer. I would love to do a court, like a specialty court that actually deals with violent offenders, because I've dealt with violent offenders for 14 years of my career, and everyone is afraid to work with them. Everyone's afraid to take a chance on them because they're like, you know, they might reoffend, it's going to look bad. I'm like, I get it. But with structure, and I think a lot of wraparound services and guidance, I think we can make a difference in people's lives. I've seen it in the little cases that I've dealt with on my own, right? As a prosecutor, I can only work on one case at a time. As a judge, I can affect more people and help them. So that's why I'm working.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for the intro. Harold, can you hear me now? Harold.
Yeah, bro, I can hear you.
Okay.
Hi, Harold.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, Carol's part of the Independent Black Voters on Facebook. So I thank you for that introduction, because again, part of what we do here is understand what your beliefs are as far as the judicial system. The other part is to understand who you are as a person, your value beliefs. We're in trying times right now, obviously, with a bad economy. Obviously, there's a direct correlation between economy and crime. There's some things that I believe are ridiculous that are happening because we should have safe communities. And I don't think you continuously let people out of jail if they are showing a preponderance to commit crimes. I've actually seen where in certain places, stores, major chains, that people have gotten to believe that they can walk in and pretty much steal and walk out with very little repercussions on what they have unless they get caught, and it's chosen to be multiple times. So obviously, I'm concerned about that side of the coin on crime and the rising crime, but also as a Black man, living in a Black community, many times we see unbalanced law, the unbalanced execution of law.
Mhm.
That's why we tend to look at, you gave me the example of the bail for the gang members, but we've seen, and as a prosecutor, you can correct me if that's wrong, we've seen where people have been held into bail without information to prove you're supposed to be guilty until proven innocent. And they've been held in there and then been literally forced to take a plea bargain, whether they were interested in it, whether they were innocent or not. So that's why they kind of rewrote the bail rules, because they were being abused by the district attorney to basically hold a certain sector of people and force them to give up their rights by pleading guilty just to get out of jail. And so there had to be a balance there. And I believe that part of this is a balance, and you're never going to be right or wrong 100%. We're going to always have examples as what you showed me, but we're also going to have other examples where people have been put in for basically walking while Black, driving while Black, stopping while Black. And so I'm very concerned about the balance and the fairness of the execution of laws, because again, I want to say community. I do not want people out here who shouldn't be on here. But in the same sense, in my shoes growing up as a Black man, and I'm 61 now, I've been pulled over and treated as a criminal first. And I've been ticketed. My sons have been ticketed where a person who didn't look like me would have not even been stopped, let alone be ticketed or harassed, simply because that's done in the nature of good policing, and that is not, in my mind, good policing. So tell me just what you think on what I just said here.
So a couple of things. I think that so to me, the bail laws have not changed. The only thing that has changed is essentially under the Val Jimenez case, it added how much a defendant can afford. So there's several factors by which a judge must look at a number of things. I think to be quite honest with you, I think part of the issue with judges is they don't have as much information as the parties, right? A defense attorney is going to know more than a judge, and a prosecutor is going to know more than a judge. I think judges are not given the kind of information that they should be given to make those kind of decisions. And part of that is the difference between the state and the federal system. The federal system has less cases, more resources. The state system has more cases, less resources, right? So we have the opposite. So I think there's that. I also think that in everything, I agree with you that there has to be a balance. You're going to give me 10 stories. I can give you 10 stories of the opposite. And I truly believe, last night I went to an event and somebody said, well, we should take discretion away from judges and, all of these, A through F kind of crimes, we should, have people should just be let out, and this, through that we should have. And I said, when you take discretion away from judges, that's where you get, to me, into really dangerous territory. Because at the end of the day, you should be informed and educated about who you're voting for, right? When you start taking discretion away from people, now you're going to get into situations where maybe they aren't committing violent crimes. But then to me, that has to do with the judge. The judge has to be able to look at the information and make a decision. Whenever you start taking discretion away, I think you start getting into dangerous territory. You elected that person for a reason. They're in there, let them use their judgment. If you want to go to a different system where we now evaluate judges on a different level, that's a different issue. But they're in there to make their discretion. It's when you take discretion away from people, I think you get into a dangerous ground. That's just my opinion. I think that there have been instances when prosecutors have abused their discretion. I'm not going to say that, there isn't. There have been times when, whether the prosecutors are young or old, they make bad decisions. We're human beings. That is why you have a judge. That's why you have a check and balance on the system. That's why you have a prosecution, a defense, and a judge. When you start taking discretion away from all of us, I think it gets into a very dangerous territory. Because at the end of the day, you have a very short snapshot of somebody as a judge, especially in justice court, right? You have the probable cause determination, you have a police report, you have their criminal history to to look at. You can talk to them, but their attorneys aren't going to tell them to talk very much. So you have a very small group of information, whereas the rest of us have more information. So that's the first thing that probably needs to be balanced just a little bit. The second thing is, I think a lot of it comes down to experience, right? If you have experience working in the field, right? So my opponent's going to say, well, hey, I've been a judge for, 19 years. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And how well have you done at that job? Just because you keep getting elected by people, it doesn't mean necessarily that you've done a good job. Let's look at what you've done. Let's look at your resume, like someone's going to look at my resume. Experience helps you to know what's going to work, which is why I made the decision to run, right? The experience that I have working with people that commit violent crimes, I think is going to help me when I put together a court to help people. Look, I was a bad kid growing up, and I don't mean like I was arrested, but I didn't listen very well. My mom can tell you that, right? I tested authority all the time. And at the end of the day, sometimes that's good because it teaches you to have a voice, but sometimes it's bad because as a young person, you don't know the balance. As an adult, we should know the balance and should help them to the system. So I think the system has to, right now, in some ways, the system is balanced this way, in other ways, the system is balanced this way. I think we have to elect people that understand the way the system works. And you're going to have judges that are all over the place on that. But hopefully, as a whole, the judiciary moves forward and realizes that we're dealing with people and their lives. That's not lost on me that my mom was a victim of domestic violence. It's not lost on me that my father was a drug addict and an alcoholic who also didn't know how to read and write. So that, it's like you have to, all of those life experiences I take into this election. And my hope is that when I'm elected, that is going to help me make those decisions.
Right. And that kind of brings us to where we're going, because as I said, we have been very instrumental in informing the Black community in the past, because in the past, we would either skip or guess. And I can think that the independent Black voters has been very, very instrumental in determining who has won in the previous elections. My community is very concerned, and I'm going to tell you, we're concerned. You said some things that really make sense. In the past, historically, until this wave of public defenders came in, it was the prosecutors who came into the judgeships. Now, that may sound good, but that gave an imbalance because prosecutors tend to go with the police 99% of the time. If the police said they did it, then prosecutors believe they did it. And if you're a judge and the police comes in, you tend to give the police higher credence than the community when they come in. And we believe that, police are public servants. They're human. They do great things. And I'm going to say this, the majority of police do very good things, but they don't always tell the truth. They don't always, they do have their biases, which are sometimes predicated in the community. And that's why there was a big wave of public defenders that came in. So as a person who's coming out of the district attorney's area, because right now, and I say this, my community is not happy with many of the things coming out of the district attorney. I ask you, why are you different? And what should make us say that, hey, I came out with that background, but I understand the community, I understand the concerns, I understand their thoughts, because we want equal justice and we want fair justice. And we are going to attempt to bring in people who understand that requirement.
I think part of it is you can look at the people that are supporting me and you can talk to people that I've worked with. My reputation speaks for itself. I mean, if you look at, and I don't put it out anymore, they want you to put together lists of people that are going to support you. I had over 50 defense attorneys, people that I work with, because I realize part of it is a job, right? This is a job. We all do jobs every single day, but part of it is people's lives, right? I think in the criminal justice system, you have to work together. You have to. I mean, the judges, they're not part of that. So when I say that, I mean the prosecution. You have to work together. Everything is a give and take. It's like a balance in life, It's just kind of a microcosm of that. But I think for me, I would say my reputation speaks for itself and the people that are supporting me. The people that threw me fundraisers, both of them were defense attorneys. Both of them were people that I had cases against. I mean, at the end of the day, for me, my word is true. If I shake your hand and I say, this is what we're going to do, you know, unless some catastrophic thing happens, and that has happened where I called somebody and I said, I know I told you this, but this is why I'm saying this. And here's, listen, you want to get out of the deal? I understand. Because at the end of the day, I think that's, you know, that's who you are.
Okay. Harold, do you have any questions? Hold on a second. You got unmute.
Right now, I don't have a question. I'm just learning and hear her background, her story.
Okay, fine. I mean, you know, we'll go forward. Again, give us a little more background about, because there's criminal, there's civil. For this position, what are the basic or the predominantly docket that would be in the court that you are seeking?
So justice court essentially is civil and criminal, although they split the dockets up, right? So if you're you know, deemed to be a civil judge, you're handling matters under civil matters under $15,000. You're doing evictions and things of that nature. I think there's 2 or 3 civil judges. It's predominantly it's a court of limited jurisdiction. So you handle bail issues. So when somebody is initially arrested, you're gonna, you know, there's a initial appearance judge that appears before a judge within, I think, 8 to 10 hours of committing a crime once they're arrested. After that, you're in justice court, where essentially you're doing arraignment. So somebody's hearing the charges that the state is bringing against them. You're hearing preliminary hearings, which is slight or marginal evidence. And then you also are hearing status checks. And then I think there are some specialty courts, veterans court and courts of that nature and justice courts. So it's a very limited on the things essentially that are happening in justice. I have no civil experience. I have over 50 felony jury trials that I have tried. So I know the rules of evidence. I don't think that's going to be a problem for me, and I'm willing to learn. So if a judge, you know, when I get elected and the judge says, hey, we want you to do civil, it's like, okay, it's like going back to school for a little bit. You just kind of learn on the job. And I think one of the things that I've learned being a district attorney is you kind of get thrown in the deep end. You got to figure it out, right? You got to figure it out fast. And so I think if I have to do civil, then I just figure it out. It's not like I can't read. It's not like I can't understand. And I've done trials before. So it's not something that I'm afraid of. You know, when I was in the city of Las Vegas, I handled domestic violence matters and DUI matters. And then here I've done, you know, felony trials. I've worked with different people. I've been the team chief. I've also worked with different organizations to find, you know, alternatives to incarceration or other things that we can do. So that's what it is.
Okay, great. So again, you're running against a sitting judge. So the next question is, you obviously have had experience. You've been obviously in front of him. You've talked to other ones. If you were to come in and win this, what are the major differences? What are the major changes that you see that need to happen to have you as a judge versus him? What's your checklist of things to do and things to change if you should be elected?
So one of the things that I want to change, or I don't know if this would be a change. One of the things that I want to add, I guess is what I should say is, you know, I have worked for the past 12 years and before that on the sexual assault with people that commit violent crimes, mostly young offenders. And I realized that I am prosecuting younger and younger people, and there are just no resources out there. There's no resources for them. I mean, I would like to put together, I've called it gang court. I don't think, you know, I think a marketing person would say that's a terrible word to use. But I think I would like to put together a court that is going to help young offenders who commit violent crimes, because everybody's afraid to deal with them. right? Because everybody's afraid they're going to look bad and it's not going to be good. And that, listen, that's going to happen because people make bad decisions over and over again. I know I did as a young person. But I would like to deal with young offenders between the ages of the problem when they're 16, it's going to be that they're a juvenile, but between 18 and 25. Sure, we can go long, bigger than that if we need to, but just a small court that kind of gives people, look, somebody who comes in that has an issue with, let's say, drug abuse. Let's figure out why they had that issue, right? Is it because maybe something happened to them as a child? Maybe they can't read or write. Maybe they have this deficiency. Maybe they're dyslexic. Let's deal with the underlying issue, and then let's give them services to help them become a productive member of society, because that's what the criminal justice system is supposed to do. That's what you want. That's what I want. That's what every community wants, right? We want people that come into the system to be better when they come out. And so that's something that I want to work with. I've talked to, John Ponder about doing something like that. I'm talking to other community kind of groups that are about that, like, hey, if I get in, how can we partner? Of course, money is always going to be an issue. I know that, but how can we partner to help people that are younger that can make better choices by giving them structure, by giving them the tools that they need to succeed? And I think now is the best time for that, because the criminal justice system is, being looked at in a different way. So that's really what I want to do. I mean, as a prosecutor, I can do some of that, right? I can put somebody on probation, but what I'm having to do is create a patchwork of, okay, let's get you in this program, then let's get you in that program, then let's try and do this. And then if this doesn't work, and I'm sure I'm making your viewers all nauseous because I'm moving back and forth, but I was telling John Ponder that yesterday. I'm trying to find programs like, look, I am invested in people doing well as well, right? People think, I just want to put people in prison. Well, how's that going to help me out if he comes out and commits the same crime? Not going to help me out, right? So how do I find programs that are going to help people? Right? And people are going to make mistakes. I was grounded for a whole year, 3 months at a time. You would have thought I would have learned after the second 6 months, after the first 6 months, like, hey, my mom's still going to make the same decisions. So I think part of that is you have to work with them to go, look, I understand that you're angry and upset, but let's figure out why you are. I get that it feels better to take drugs and you go in a world that, you can kind of do your own thing. I understand that you're frustrated about this, that you're, like for me, my dad wasn't always there, right? So I had to find other figures to kind of supplement where he wasn't. And so I think you have to do that, because now our, family structure is a lot different than it was in the 1950s. So we have to change some of those models. We have to work with people. We have to, I think my legitimacy as a prosecutor, I can say to prosecutors, look, we got to chill. Like, I get it, but let's try and see if we can work this out. Right? As a defense attorney, I can say, listen, I understand you're advocating for your client, but we have to be able to work together. If we're all going to just stand in our own little sandbox, nothing's going to happen. So that's really what I want to do when I get it. I know it's going to be challenging because I think money will be an issue. Because, anytime you're dealing with the court process, it's always about money. But I think there are resources out there and there are people that I can turn to. I met Chris G recently at Hispanic in Politics. And she was telling me she's working with a social justice program. So I'd like to reach out and talk to her. As I've said, I've talked to John Ponder. I've talked to other agencies about how they're dealing with people that come in. And one of the agencies was telling me, look, you got somebody who comes in for petty larceny class. One might be a single mother who stole because her kids are hungry and she's got to feed them. One's a drug addict who maybe they were molested as a child. And so that's why they they got into drugs and then they stole, and then here we go. And one guy just stole because he wanted to steal. All three of those people need to be treated differently. We can do the same 8-hour class and have them go. So now we check the statistic and we check the box that they, we did what we told them to do, but are they going to leave changed? Probably not, unless we deal with that underlying thing. I also realize that there are limitations to the criminal justice system, right? I can't change everybody all the time and make them better, but I can try.
Great. First, I do appreciate the candor and the openness. So that's very important to to the independent Black voters, because we want to know your opinions, and you've given us your open opinions, and that's important to us. As I said, we are going through a transitional period in America, and many people are not happy with this transition. The old guard was happy with the way it is. And as I said, we believe systemic racism is still alive and well. And one of the reasons that people are fighting is to change the behaviors and the beliefs. Systemic racism allows biases. It allows for one person to have beliefs on top of another. The community, if a policeman says you did this in the past, you pretty much did it. If the community said I didn't do it, it seems like balance was given to the statements from the police.
Well, I've prosecuted police, right?
I did not know, but
yes, I have prosecuted police officers. Listen, one of the things that, as the team chief of the gang unit, one of the things that I believe is you have better policing when I took responsibility from my unit. And what I mean when I say that is, when there are issues with the gang unit, I went in and personally taught people, right? So if gang enforcement, and I'm sure there's going to be people going, well, I dealt with them and they weren't great. I get that. But when there are issues with the gang unit, and I was, in heavy contact with each of the different captains and the lieutenants, I went in there and taught myself, because what I believed is they are an extension of who I am. Okay. So if there are mistakes being made all the time about certain issues, then that is a reflection of who I am, which Absolutely. Means I need to go in there and I need to correct it. Now, obviously I can't change everybody. I can't be there all the time. When the gang unit for a period of time went away under decentralization, and then when they came back, every single case that was denied by the district attorney's office came across my desk. Every single one. So I could see what the mistakes were, what was being done right, or obviously what was being done wrong. And then I went and I taught like a 2.5-hour class with another police officer next to me, so that when I say the law and they go, oh no, I understand, I had somebody go, oh, this is what she means and this is what she's talking about. So for me, it is very important, and it was very important for me to take responsibility of that unit, because I was working with them. Mm-hmm. So if there are behaviors that need to be changed in that unit, I made sure to speak up. Because what I realize as a female minority is not everybody always speaks up. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, and sometimes nobody likes it. I've learned to do it a little bit with some humor, because I am a very direct person, which has gotten me into a lot of trouble, because somebody will ask me a question, and I have been in meetings before with people that are much higher ranked than myself, and I've said exactly what I thought. And then later on, I got a phone call from my boss going, maybe you should kind of temper that a little bit. And I'm like, listen, it needs to be said. So I have no problems saying this is wrong.
Good. And that's what. And that's why I appreciate the fact your candor seems to be open and honest, because we need to know you as a community, and it's not going to be on one Zoom meeting. As a matter of fact, if you are available next week, Wednesday, have you ever heard of the Shepherd's Breakfast?
I went to a Shepherd's Breakfast in December by myself, and I felt bad because I had to leave because I had court, but I actually thought it was great, and I wanted to talk to people after, but I was like, oh, really bad, so I had to sneak out. So yes, I have been to a Shepherd's Breakfast.
Well, I'm going to invite you to come this Wednesday. This Wednesday is the last Wednesday of the month at 9 a.m. It is an opportunity to get to meet different people in the community. I tend to be there if I'm in town. Yeah, so now, again, and I thank you for your candor, because that's very important. Now, there are a couple questions I ask, and because our community has to understand certain things about people, because it tells us a little bit.
Okay.
Obviously, in 2020, we had an election. There was a lot of controversy on it.
Was there?
Well, there was a lot of it's still going on forward. So I always ask this question: who won the 2020 election?
And when you say the election, I'm assuming that you mean the presidential election.
Presidential election.
Joe Biden.
Okay.
I was like,
okay. I mean, you would be amazed with things that people want. There's been a push for voter security. And it's almost the implication that there's massive fraud going on in our voter system to the point where it's actually disrupting our democracy because it's causing us to lose faith, or a big amount to lose faith in our system of democracy because of this implied need for voter security, with the implication that these major political voting is being rigged and stolen. What's your thought on voter security, and your thought on just where we're headed from that point? This is your personal.
I know you're not trying to get me in trouble. So, as a judge, I would follow the law
Okay.
as to what the law is. At this point, so far that I know, the law is, you can do mail-in ballots, and so we do mail-in ballots. So at the end of the day, I would follow the law.
Okay. And that's a great answer from the political. This is not about your job. I still like to know your opinion.
Well, here's the thing. So I know you know that we're bound by the judicial canons. I don't want to get myself in trouble before I even start, which is normally how I start my thing. I get in trouble first and then I ask for forgiveness. So I don't know that I can actually give an opinion about this. At the end of the day, I have voted in every primary and in every general election, and I believe in it. I think that it's important. I think you should be educated on the people that you vote for. I appreciate groups like you, because at the end of the day, right, before I have to vote, I'm Googling people and I'm reading stuff. And I just recently got on social media because of the election. So, I would use that tool now, but it's hard to get information. So I don't think there's an issue.
Yeah, and this is your personal opinions. This is not this has nothing. We're now on a let's get to know you. And I'm asking specific questions to get a better feel of you yourself. We are in dangerous times right now. And that's why we ask this question right now. There's a lot of misinformation out there. It is breeding things that the Black community is very concerned about. And, I ask everyone, some are very uncomfortable with some of the questions I ask. Some will answer the questions because we're not asking from the opinion of the courtroom. We need to know you and your opinion from, are you the kind of person that are aware of some of the things that are going on?
Yes,
and
I'm
what your
aware
belief
of
on.
it. Okay. I'm aware of it. But at the end of the day, obviously, I haven't done anything about it, right? Like I've said to you, I don't have a problem speaking up. So if I thought that there was an issue, then I would speak up.
Okay. And part of this interview is going to be offline. Some of it we do here, but some of it we'll do afterwards, because we do like to know specific information from a person. And I'm not trying to trick somebody. I'm not trying to put them in some situations. People do. There's certain things, though, I need to know what their opinions are. And some of them are very important. Right now, the Black community is very concerned about the rise of white nationalism. We are very concerned that it's the preclude to fascism. We are very concerned that, a statement you made there is, what are we all doing to address that issue and defeat fascism? Because America is supposed to be predicated on democracy, we the people, one vote, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the whole fabric of America is being attacked today in many ways through misinformation and fear and a unequal economic plate that seems to be designed to pit us against each other. And that's the nature of the beast right now. And when I talk to you right now, we'll talk some more offline, but I just want to know where your head is, because you, as whatever position, are going to be a factor in what happens. And I always tell people, you're either part of the solution or you're part of
Part of the problem.
whether or not you're actively involved. Silence back in Nazi Germany was the reason that Hitler ending up with control. Silence was the reason that many of the atrocities happen, because it's not the bad people, it's the good people who stay silent.
So here's how I can answer that question, and hopefully it makes it clear to you. One of the gangs that we had trouble with, right, in this community is the Aryan Warriors. And so I tasked my gang unit. One of the things I did with the deputies, I said, okay, we have an issue with the Aryan Warriors in this community. Now, the Aryan Warriors it's a prison gang, right? I mean, they're out on the street, but that's essentially where their power is, because that's where most of their leaders are. They're in prison. And so I said, we need to figure out, how we can prosecute the entirety of this gang, or as many of them as possible, as opposed to just prosecuting 2 or 3 people and try and picking them off. And so they ended up, my team and I ended up coming with the solution to prosecute the Aryan Warriors under the state racketeering statute, which had not been done in probably 20 something years. And so we prosecuted 18 members of the Aryan Warriors, right? Most of their crimes, like the murder that we prosecuted for, that happened in the prison, right? That didn't happen out here on the streets. But at the end of the day, the activities that they were involved with came out into the streets and affected what we were doing in this community and the safety of this community, which is why we took a stand against that. And I say we because I personally didn't come up with the idea. Members of my team that I tasked with came up with that idea. We sat down, we talked about it, we worked on it, we looked at it, and then we, got Metro on board to essentially, hey, this is the direction we want to go in, and then we prosecuted them. So to me, I agree with you, right? About not speaking up, about being part of the solution or part of the problem. For me, that was a kind of line in the sand, like, hey, we're not going to allow this to happen. Now, obviously, I can't prosecute every single person, but it was, 20 something members of the Aryan Warriors.
Okay, great. Well, I thank you. I'm gonna say, Danielle, I didn't know you from Adam before this. I appreciate the fact that you responded to me in a timely fashion. I appreciate the fact that you've been very honest and open. And I'm gonna say this, we try to be a voice for the community, Black community, but really whatever happens in our community, if there's crabgrass in our community, it's going to go to every community. We just get it first. So again, our goal is to educate so that we have people that vote knowing who the person is, not what party affiliation is. And obviously this is nonpartisan, but each side has a person that they prefer. So again, I am nonpartisan, so I believe we speak with everybody. We learn the person, not the party, and find out what's going on. Before I let you take it home and tell people your name, what you're running for, why you would be the great candidate for this, Harold, do you have any comments or statements that you'd like to make? Are you off of mute?
I heard laughing.
Okay, now we can hear you. Now talk. Start over.
Oh, y'all can hear me now? Good. Can you hear me, Brian?
What did you say?
I was saying, can you hear me? I guess you can hear me, so you asked what I said. Oh, I was saying, I appreciate your time, Danielle, stopping by and explaining to us and telling us your background. I like everything you said so far, and I feel like you'll be a good candidate for that position.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. That's all I got to say, Brian.
Okay, thank you, Harold. As I said, with the independent Black voters, he's correct. We want the best candidate against the best candidate. And it's important after we get the best candidate against the best candidate, then we have the best of the best win. So again, we thank you. And I'm gonna ask you, Danielle, to take a minute here, tell everybody your name, tell the department you're running, give us a quick 30-second, 45-second overview why you think that you should be the new judge for your department.
My name is Danielle Pieper. I am running for Las Vegas Justice Court Department number 9. I think experience matters, and experience in the criminal justice system, working with people and trying to help people. I think I am the best candidate because I have experience. I have dealt with problems. I've come up with common sense solutions, and I also have compassion as well as passion for the job. So I would appreciate your support, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you very much for your time.
And
You're on mute.
And we thank you. This is Brian Harris, the Independent Black Voters on Facebook. Our vote is not free. Folks, we're nonpartisan. We talk to Republicans, Democrats, nonpartisans to understand the person and not the party. Black people want safe neighborhoods. The Black community wants to have safe neighborhoods. We want to have law and order, but we want balanced law and order. There are changes coming today, right now, across the nation. Some people are not happy with these changes, as we tend to try to destroy systemic racism, as we tend to work at trying to make America great in the future, as we try to bring in people who will treat all people in the community fairly, with equity, with respect, no matter what their economic situation is. So we thank you again, Danielle. We're about to click off the recording because I want to talk to you for a few minutes offline.